Hello everyone, I'm the storyteller, and I'm here to accompany you today. I know you're watching this video to relax or help you sleep. So first, please like and subscribe. Where are you from? What time is it? Relax, unwind, and enjoy the moment. This is why I don't go into the woods at night anymore. I hate my fucking wife. And when I say hate, I do mean hate. Dumb bitch can't cook worth of shit. All she does is yell constantly and complain about anything she possibly can. I swear last night she was bitchin' because she thinks the light on our alarm clock is too bright. Last week she kicked my bloodhound Turtle because she wasn't moving her ass fast enough to get outside, while Pam held the door open for her. I wanted to kick her after that. Maybe I should kick her for not making our dinner fast enough, or for not doing the laundry for weeks at a time. I'm wearing this same pair of overalls again for the third day in a row, for Christ's sake. She's just a miserable bitch. The only thing she wants to do is watch her goddamn CNN and chain smoke while I make bullshit repairs to the house. A house I don't even want to live in. I can't even remember the last time she smiled. I can't remember the last time she seemed even the slightest bit happy. It must have been years ago. I did love her at one time, though I'm not sure why. Let's see. When was the last time I actually felt like I was in love with this woman? Oh, I remember. It was 34 years ago. That's how long we've been married. 34 horrible fucking years. When her mother died a couple of years back, we got this house. It's a two-story in the middle of the woods that was likely built in the late 1800s. The driveway that runs through the tall maple trees is at least a mile long. I hated it out here. I hate these fucking woods. I hate the mosquitoes. I hate the leaves. I hate everything about this place. I can't stress enough how much I hate these fucking woods. But even more than that, I hate this fucking house. Even though I grew up as a farm boy, I hated being out in the middle of nowhere. The only thing I can do to stay happy is drink. And I do drink. A lot. Every night is the same bullshit routine. We hardly say a word to each other while she sits in that lazy boy recliner, smoking her Canadian classics and staring at that fucking TV screen. I sit on the couch sipping my Kentucky whiskey and petting Turtle, waiting for my food. My food, which I'll absolutely hate, I might add. At exactly 7 p.m., when Erin Burnett comes on the TV, she gets off her fat ass to make dinner. I usually switch the channel over to sports, but have to switch it right back to CNN as soon as she's back in the room. We don't even sit at the dinner table anymore. The last time I'd went into the dining room, it was covered as dust. There were cobwebs everywhere. We eat her horrible meals in the living room now, so she doesn't miss 1 minute of her precious news. This living room is a fucking mess. Piles of clothes in every corner of the room that she says she'll get to eventually. Some are dirty. Some are clean and need to be folded and put away. The floor hasn't been vacuumed in months. I don't even take my boots off when I'm in here anymore. Tonight was the same routine as always. We both sat in the living room, me sipping my drink and stroking Turtle's head, her staring at that goddamn screen. I couldn't understand her fascination, but I didn't want to. 7 p.m. hit and the intro to Erin Burnett out front began playing. Pam first coughed her lungs out before finally struggling to her feet and waddling to the kitchen without saying a word. A lit cigarette still burning away in the ashtray next to her chair. I stood up and put it out before grabbing the TV remote to switch over to Sports Center. "Don't change my show!" I heard her shout from the kitchen. The first time she'd ever complained about me changing her channel. She wasn't even in here. Why did she give a shit? This must just be another thing she decided to add to her list to bitch at me about. I flipped the channel back to CNN. Why? I didn't want to deal with her nagging. Best to just keep her happy. I sat there scratching Turtle behind her ear before finally downing the last of my drink. "Come get it!" I heard her shout. I passed her in the small hallway on my way to the kitchen. She was carrying her plate, and I could see burnt pork chops and potatoes. Perfect. I walked into the kitchen, grabbed my plate off the counter, and made my way back to the living room. I sat back on the couch while Turtle went to lay in the corner. She knew not to sit near us while we ate. I trained her well. She's a good dog. Pam is unbelievably slow at everything she does. and still hadn't sat down by the time I'd made my way back to the living room. As she was resting her plate on the small table next to her chair, I could see her old woman underwear through her thin pants, and it made me want to vomit. She repulsed me. I tried my best to ignore that visual as I carved a chunk off my charred pork chop and popped it into my mouth. Disgusting. It wasn't even seasoned. She never was a good cook, but I swear she's only gotten worse over the years. Once she was settled into her chair, the chair I bought her 10 years ago, she reached over and lit a cigarette. I stared at her for a moment, waiting to see if she realized what she'd just done. "Oh, for fuck's sakes, what am I doing?" she asked herself. "You finna smoke? Or you finna eat?" I teased her with a slight smile on my face. She looked over at me, unimpressed. "I'm gonna eat, Carl. My brain just wasn't working there for a sec." "Your brain ain't been working in years," I said, staring back at the TV. She was silent for a moment. I could see her glaring at me from the corner of my eye. Finally, she shouted, "Why do you always gotta be a damn asshole?" I didn't say a word. I didn't even look at her. I just kept shoveling potatoes into my mouth while staring at the TV screen. "Are you gonna answer me?" she finally asked. This was her way of saying, "I'm bored, so let's argue." I gave her exactly what she wanted. "Why do I gotta be an asshole?" I responded to her. "I don't gotta be. I just am. I blame the 34 years of marriage to you for that. Pam, maybe you made me an asshole." She continued staring at me, seething. "Are you gonna watch your damn show or ain't ya?" I asked her. "'Cause I can switch it back to the hockey game." "When you're done supper," she said, ignoring my last statement. "Finish fixing that window frame in the upstairs bedroom." "Nah," I said. "Tomorrow." "You said you would have that fixed a week ago," she exclaimed. "Tell you what," I stated. "I'll finish fixing that window frame once you get rid of all this laundry and maybe run a vacuum over this goddamn carpet." "What?" she shouted at me. This fight we were having was no different than the fights we had any other night, but Pam seemed to be getting extra pissed off this time. She stood up and shuffled over to me. She reached out her arms, trying to snatch the plate of horribly overcooked food from my hands. "What the fuck are you doing, woman?" I screamed at her. "From now on, you make dinner," she shouted. "And do the laundry, and the dishes, and the cleaning. All you ever do is sit on that computer or watch your sports. I'm fucking done, Carl," I snapped. I worked my ass off for years to take care of this dumb bitch, and now she was gonna betray me over a petty argument? She was gonna try to take my food from me? The food that I paid for? No chance. I could feel my face getting hot. I stood up in a rage and tossed my plate across the room as hard as I could. It shattered against the wall, and pieces of burned pork chops, potatoes, and broken ceramic flew everywhere. Turtle hopped up startled and started barking. I balled my hand into a fist and raised it like I was gonna hit her, but she didn't even flinch. Instead, she took a step closer to me. God, I wanted to hit her. "Do it!" she screamed in my face. "Do it, you pussy motherfucker! I dare you!" She pointed to her chin. "Right there. Go on, hit me. The police will be here so fast, and I'll have you out of my life forever." I clenched my jaw and thought about it for a moment. In 34 years, I'd never laid a finger on her, but I was strongly considering it now. I wanted to take this ugly bitch down so bad. But no, that's not who I am. I turned and began walking towards the front door. I just wanted to leave. "Hit me!" she screamed again. I ignored her. "Come on, Turtle!" I shouted. The old bloodhound made her way over to me. "Where are you going, you pussy?" my wife shouted. I didn't respond to her. I opened the front door and made my way onto the front porch. Turtle followed close behind me. "That's what I thought!" I heard her shouting as I slammed the door. As I stepped off the porch, I could still hear her screaming at me in the house. I'm not a religious man, but I didn't really believe in divorce. "Till death do you part," the pastor said on our wedding day. "Just fucking die already," I said aloud to myself, snickering at the cleverness in my words. I wasn't sure where I was going, but I knew I didn't want to be in that house anymore with that horrible human being. I decided that maybe I'd drive into town. I'll go to a bar and drink my woes away until the early morning hours. Maybe I'll get a prostitute. It's been years since Pam and I have had sex, and I was itching for it. But then again, it's just a small town, and I doubt there would be prostitutes just roaming the streets. I walked to my truck as I reached into the front pocket of my overalls for my keys. They weren't there. God damn it! Now I have to go back into that house to retrieve them. Actually, no. Fuck that. Turtle and I were gonna go for a walk. I was still livid and decided that a stroll through the woods might be the best thing to calm me down. Besides, I've never really walked through these woods at night before. It could be therapeutic. I decided that's what I would do. The fresh air and exercise would be good for me anyway. I stared down at Turtle as she looked up at me, wagging her tail. I know dogs can't smile, but it looked like she was smiling. She seemed to be happy that we were both out here tonight. Normally it's just her out here at nighttime, exploring these woods alone in the dark. I love this dog. I love her way more than that bitch in the house anyway. Come on, Turtle, I said, waving my hand in the direction I was going to be walking. Turtle walked next to me excitedly as we made our way into the blackness of the woods. I'm not exactly sure how long I'd been walking, but it must have been at least 10 minutes. When you get to be as old as I am, 10 minutes of walking can take its toll on you. I was disappointed the moon wasn't full. There was only a sliver of it showing in the sky, and I was depending on what little light it had to guide me. I was trying to enjoy the nature. The tall maple trees still seemed majestic, even in the black of the night. The air was cool and crisp. My heavy boots crunched twigs and leaves as I made my way deeper into the woods. Turtle ran around excitedly sniffing every tree and every plant she came across. She never got too far from me. Even if she did, I knew she could make her way back home without any issues. Bloodhounds have the best sniffers of any dog. Back when I used to go duck hunting, Turtle was my best friend. She'd retrieved every duck I'd ever shot, running up to me with its limp neck in her mouth while she wagged her tail. It's hard to believe she's 10 years old now. It makes me sad to think she's on her final days. I looked behind me and noticed I could still see the faint glow of our porch light through the trees. Really? I've only made it this far after 10 minutes? The glow was faint though, so maybe I had gone further than I thought. I walked for maybe another minute when suddenly Turtle stopped in her tracks. She wasn't busy sniffing anything. I couldn't see what was distracting her. She was just standing there, staring straight ahead of us. I kept on going, knowing that she would eventually catch up. But when I looked back a moment later, she hadn't budged. "Turtle!" I yelled to her. "Turtle! What are you doing, girl? Let's go." Turtle didn't listen. Instead, she turned around and ran full speed back towards the house. What had gotten into her? I shrugged it off and thought about walking back to the house myself. It was so dark out here, I didn't want to lose my way. Besides, it would take me at least 10 minutes to get back home, and I was already getting more exhausted than I thought I'd be. Also, I'd calmed down a lot already. I was beginning to think that maybe I had overreacted when fighting with Pam. Then the image of her disgusting wet mouth hauling on those cigarettes with her old lady underwear showing through her pants came into my head. And I thought, nah, fuck that. Bitch got what she deserved. I sighed and began walking back the way I came when I heard the sound of an animal close by. What the hell was that? There's only deer around here and maybe some foxes. Even though I'd never seen one, I have heard that coyotes would make their way through the area from time to time. But whatever made that sound definitely wasn't a coyote. I heard the noise again, faintly. Was that a bat screeching? No, it couldn't be. Whatever it was definitely bigger than a bat. I heard it a third time, and it sounded not like an animal, but like a human, like a child giggling. I was sure of it. My entire body froze and I stayed perfectly still. The thought of a kid being all the way out here in the middle of the night was a scary thought. Why the fuck would there be a kid all the way out here in the middle of these woods anyway? And why the hell would they be giggling? A fourth time. I heard it a fourth time. This was definitely a human giggle. The hair on the back of my neck stood on end. I spun around scanning the area, looking for any sign of a person within the dark trees. The only reason I could think anyone would be out here so damn late would be to fuck with me, to scare me. Well, you got me, I thought. You win. I'm scared. I spun back towards the house where I could still see the glow of the porch light and took 2 steps forward when I heard multiple giggles echoing through the forest. I stood directly in the middle of 4 massive maple trees, frantically scanning the area for anyone. This is when I realized the giggling was coming from above me. That realization shocked me like freezing cold water had just been dumped down my back. I took 3 deep breaths, and after a moment, although I didn't want to, I slowly looked up. I'm telling you, I pissed myself a little. At that moment, I felt terror like I'd never felt before. The feeling was indescribable. In the tops of these 4 trees, there were 4 men. At least, I think they were men. Even though it was dark, I could see that all 4 of them had massive, inhuman-looking smiles on their faces. Their eyes were completely white, as if they didn't have corneas or pupils. One of them seemed to bounce excitedly on the branch they were sitting on. Another one was cocking his head to the right, then the left, back and forth. How the fuck did they get up there? I stayed frozen in place, paralyzed by fear. My brain could not process what I was seeing. Then, still with those huge smiles on their faces, in unison, they all started giggling loudly. One of them put their hands to their mouth as it giggled, and I could see that their fingers were long and gangly. On closer inspection, all of their appendages seemed inhumanly long. Long, skinny legs and arms. These men, these creatures, must have been at least 7 feet tall. They were all wearing identical black outfits, pale white skin and bald heads. Their heads looked larger than any normal human head I'd ever seen. I could hear myself hyperventilating, but my body had become so numb, I wasn't even sure if those noises were coming from me. One of them wrapped his arms and legs around the thick maple tree and began sliding down it slowly, staring at me and giggling the entire time. This is when I began to run. I'm 62 years old and can't remember the last time I'd run for any reason. I definitely couldn't remember the last time I'd run this fast. My heart was beating wildly in my chest, and my body was filled with fear and adrenaline. I wasn't sure what these things would do to me, but I refused to stick around to find out. I knew I had to get back to the safety of the house. The first thing I'd do was grab my gun. A Beretta A400 that I kept locked away in a gun safe. I knew it was loaded and would make short work of whatever these things were. As I ran, I could hear the footsteps behind me. I looked back to see one of them was chasing me. His gangly legs took long strides as he continued to smile and giggle. His head, his face, looked like that of a baby. Smooth white skin and a giant baby's head. That smile. That toothless smile. It was literally so wide it went from ear to ear. Wait, did it even have ears? Its white eyes pierced me, and I could tell it was having fun. It was enjoying this. Behind it, I could see the other 4 creatures shimmying their way down the trees, the same way this one had done. They were most likely looking to join in on the chase. I ran faster. I'm not sure how it was humanly possible for me to run faster than I already had been, but I did. Even in my track years back in high school, I don't think I ran this fast. Not to mention, I was wearing heavy work boots and I'm an old fucking man. Pam, you bitch, I thought. If only you'd been a pleasant person and knew how to cook, I wouldn't be out in these woods right now being chased by fucking monsters. My entire body was shaking and I could feel the exhaustion taking me over with every stride I took. How long had I been running now? It felt like a couple minutes at least, and I couldn't handle it anymore. But the sound of those giggles behind me kept me moving. I didn't want to find out what would happen if these things caught up to me. The porch light was only about 60 or 70 yards away now. I just had to keep moving. I had to keep pushing myself. I could hear the footsteps and the giggles were much closer than before. I took another quick glance over my shoulder to see that these things were only about 20 feet behind me. I felt like they should have caught up to me by now. They could clearly run faster than me, what with those long spider-like legs and all. It was almost as if they were allowing me to stay ahead of them. Maybe the thrill of the chase was just as fun to them as whatever they planned on doing once they caught me. Finally, I made it to the front yard. I leapt onto the porch just as I felt a large claw-like hand scrape its sharp nails across my back. I screamed out in pain as I opened the front door, slamming it behind me. "Carl, what the fuck?" Pam screamed at me from her chair. "Get my gun!" I tried my best to yell to her between heavy breaths as I locked the door and put all my weight onto it, barricading it. I had to make sure these things didn't get inside the house. I was so out of breath. I felt like I was going to collapse right there. I'm not sure how bad my injury was, but I could feel blood trickling down my back. Your gun? Pam asked, confused. Why? What's... Just fucking get it, woman, I screamed, interrupting her. She saw how frantic I was, along with the claw marks running down my bloodied back, and must have realized something very serious was happening, as she immediately ran to the back room and started turning the mechanical dial lock on the gun safe. Something from the outside was jiggling the door handle. I looked out the transom window at the top of my front door to see a giant smiling face staring directly back at me. I turned white as a ghost as I peered into its eyes. Just inches away from me, it flapped its disgustingly long tongue in and out of its mouth, licking the glass. I couldn't look away. I was paralyzed by fear. After only a few seconds, it slowly slinked out of the way to reveal that all four of these things were now standing on my porch. The light was making it so I could see them much more clearly than in the dark of the woods. Those giant toothless smiles still plastered on their faces. Large baby heads on the bodies of tall, lanky men. They were much more frightening up close. It's hard to describe them without sounding crazy, but even a quick glance at one would cause your body to tremble in intense terror, as mine was now. Demons. They had to have been demons. I didn't even believe in demons, so what the fuck was happening? Pam waddled over to me as fast as she could, frantically handing me my Beretta. The giggles were so much louder now, I could hear them coming through the door. Are those children out there? Pam asked. Who's out there laughing? I ignored her question. Get back, I shouted as I took 4 steps back from the front door and pulled the trigger twice. Pam had dove onto the floor, covering her ears. 2 holes were now blown into the wooden frame. The sound of the shotgun being shot inside the house was almost deafening. Even with the intense ringing in my ears, I could still hear them giggling, along with their footsteps leaving the porch. They were running away. I ran up to the front door and peered out of one of the holes I'd just blown in it. Did I hit one? Number. I could see 4 skinny, 7-foot-tall silhouettes making their way into the woods. All 4 of them ran in different directions. I continued staring at them as I pointed my gun out of the hole. One of them was flailing its arms in the air. It reminded me of a marionette puppet whose limbs were out of place. I kept my gun pointed at it as it stopped and turned around. I could barely see it, but took aim anyway and fired a 3rd time. It bent its body backwards like some double-jointed gymnast and let out a loud cackle that sounded nothing like the giggling noises they were making previously. It then straightened its oddly shaped body and continued running into the woods. Pam called the police, and they arrived shortly thereafter. I could tell they didn't believe my story, as they wrote down everything I was saying. I explained to them in detail everything that had happened that night since 7 p.m. The fight with Pam, me throwing my plate across the room, how strange Turtle was acting out in the woods. Turtle! Where was she? I immediately began calling for her when the cops told me they were sure she was fine and asked me to continue with my story. I did continue, telling them everything that had happened right up until they arrived. The tall male officer with the brown mustache looked unimpressed. I saw him roll his eyes a few times when I mentioned certain details of my story. Even after I showed him the bloody claw marks running down my back, he just shrugged and stated, "It looks like you fell." "This was not caused by a fall," I stated. "How could you think that?" The officer, ignoring my question, turned to Pam and asked, "Did you see any of these smiling men?" Pam, with a worried look on her face, shook her head. What a lying bitch. "And what about this laughing they were doing? Did you hear any of that?" Pam shook her head again and glared at me like we'd both gone crazy. A little while later, the police dispatched another cruiser to the house, and with flashlights in hand, the 4 of them walked through the woods in the direction I told them I'd gone that night. Even though I knew these were trained professionals who were carrying guns, I was still worried for them. I prayed they'd make it back all right. I prayed those demon creatures wouldn't get the best of them. A little under an hour later, the officers all began to return one by one from different directions in the woods. I don't watch horror movies much, as Pam hates them, but I did know the rule about not splitting up when you're in a situation like that. Thank God it worked out for them. The first 3 officers advised me that they hadn't found anything unusual. they hadn't come across any smiling men or heard any giggling. When the fourth officer returned, he had a look on his face, like he had bad news for me. As he approached, I had a sickening feeling in the pit of my stomach. "I'm sorry, sir, but you said you owned a bloodhound that came for the walk with you?" "Yes," I shouted, expecting the worst. "Turtle, please tell me she's okay." The officer looked down at the ground and removed his hat. "I'm sorry to inform you. It appears as though something got her, possibly a large animal. Sir, your dog is dead." I fell to the ground in tears. My sweet, sweet Turtle was gone. At the hospital, the doctor admitted to me he wasn't sure how I'd gotten these slash marks on my back, but it looked like the work of a bear. I knew this didn't make sense as there weren't any bears in this area. The cuts weren't serious enough that they needed to be stitched, but they still hurt like hell. They cleaned me up with some rubbing alcohol, applied some antibiotic ointment, wrapped me up, and sent me on my way. It's been 5 days now since that terrifying event happened. Pam hasn't talked to me since that night. She accused me of either going crazy or lying to her, but I know she heard them too. She denies it, but I've noticed she refuses to leave the house or even open an outside door anymore past dark. She still maintained that it was likely all in my head and that I should seek professional help, but I refused. I know what I fucking saw. We both know what we fucking heard. I know what fucking happened. If I am going crazy, it's because no one believes me. She also thinks I'm the one who killed Turtle. Like I could ever do something like that. I don't understand how she could surmise that's even possible because the next day, while the sun was shining, I ventured out into the woods to retrieve her corpse. She had been ripped apart. My dog was now just a pile of blood, bones, and fur. The poor girl looked like she didn't have a fighting chance. There is no possible way I could have done that to her. No animal I know of in this area could do something like that either. I knew who likely could though. I don't go outside after dark anymore. I make my own dinners and do my own laundry. Hell, I even vacuumed the living room carpet this morning. My drinking has gotten much worse, to say the least. I went from about 3 or 4 glasses at night to about 10 or 11 total throughout the day. Believe it or not, being piss drunk all the time seemed to keep me sane. I don't even sit with that dumb bitch anymore. I can't stand being around her. I spend most of my time in the spare room upstairs on the computer. Why didn't I think of this before? It's far more peaceful being alone up here than with someone who hates you. With someone who's hated you for years. I mean, I know we both hated each other before, but it's so much worse now. It's nighttime. 7:30 p.m. I can hear the TV downstairs. Pam likely already made dinner for one and is watching her CNN. I sit here on my computer next to the window, sipping my drink. As I stare at my faint reflection in the glass, I can see the dark trees outside. I can hear them giggling. I can hear them giggling all throughout the forest. Not just 4 of them. No. There are definitely more than 4 of them. With the amount of giggles I hear echoing through the forest, I'm guessing there must be at least 100 of them now. And that's it for today. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like it, subscribe, and leave a comment letting me know what you think. Relax, unwind, and get some sleep. See you in the next video.